I have an unexpected coverage. If you go back in our archives, if you've listened to us for an extended period of time, this was YouTube exclusive. Did not go on the main podcast at cryptotalkradio.net. I did a coverage where Crypto Realist, who's a known YouTube influencer, quote unquote, had gotten rugged. And he openly admitted he got rugged on the air. He said, I got rugged. I didn't do my due diligence. That's why I tell you guys to do your own research. And I took that as an opportunity, a learning opportunity to go and take a look at the token that rugged him, because he's a pretty darn intelligent guy. And it was surprising to see that he had, not that you get rugged because that happens, but I wanted to understand a little bit more about the project that rugged him. And that one was already gone from the web. So I had to go to archive.org and do all this analysis. And it turns out, from what I saw, there's just no way Crypto Realist did any due diligence before, quote, aping into that project. So just recently, Believes Crypto, who's been on the show before, he's another YouTube influencer. He has a lot of followers. He does a lot of coverage on a lot of different cryptos that he's partnered with and some that he just likes. He came out on social media and said, and he did a video on his channel that said, you know, this token has rugged, and he took ownership because he had advocated at one point with his coverage. He took ownership and said, you know, I feel responsible if you bought in because of what I did, because a lot of people have said over time, you know, because of the coverage you did, I bought in and I got what, you know, I won out, whatever. So he doesn't actively shield the project. He's more like cheerleader. He'll look at it, he'll cover the graphs, and he'll give fundamentals and say, here's the technicals of what I'm seeing. But it's a lot of cheerleaders like, yep, we're going up, we're doing good momentum, or we're down, we're going to have some issues, bear, bumpy, whatever. It's very neutral in what it is, but he's optimistic in what he does. If he sees that there's momentum, positive momentum potential, he calls it straight. I argue that in terms of the graph and analysis of the graph, he's one of the best to go through how he sees it. And he always tells you, this is the way I see it. It's not financial advice, but he's always right. And he said with people that attacked him that ultimately he's an entertainer. Everybody has a slogan, mine's never scripted. So when he announced this, it surprised me because, again, his track record arguably is very good in terms of the projects that look like they have long-term potential. He actively does not go after projects that look like they're going to crap out, because he, of course, had been involved. If you go back and listen to our coverage with him when he was on the show, he was involved with the Keanu Inu project. And so he knows how it works when there are situations where you might have lost money because of something where the devs just take money and run. So this was peculiar. I decided to take a look in this, just like I did with Crypto Realist and the whole BabyApeNodes fiasco where he could not have done any analysis. And I wanted to better understand, is this a situation where there's like Bleaves didn't do due diligence, or what the heck went on? The site is strangeenu.net. It's still running. They've since yanked the vast majority of their social media. But as of me recording this, the website is still up there. If you want to take a look at it, I do encourage you to do so. The first thing that caught my eye, the website is decently well designed. However, at the top, it has this blanket disclaimer that says it's not affiliated with Doctor Strange, Marvel, or Disney, and da-da-da-da-da-da. So now I'm connecting the dots because I didn't follow Strange EU. I didn't cover it and I didn't invest in it because, again, as I said, if it's getting a lot of hype on social media, I usually avoid it up front because usually I want to let the smoke die down, give them some time to test it out, see that they're kind of kicking the tires, getting past the mistakes. Maybe there's a migration. I learned my lesson from Paratoken. I'm not doing again where I jump into a project that looks good on the surface, but I'm not giving them enough time to show that they're incompetent or not. So I saw it, but I didn't buy in and I didn't cover it because I wasn't sure yet. And I wanted to give them some time to prove it out. And that's been my philosophy. So when I saw this whole not connected with Doctor Strange, Marvel, Disney, now I'm starting to connect the dots. Okay, they built this based off the whole Doctor Strange, which I don't follow that. I don't follow Marvel. I don't follow Disney. I don't follow any of this garbage. So I'm disconnected. I'm the old man, get off my lawn, get off my lawn type of guy. And so I didn't connect it. I just figured strange as in they're just weird people. So now that I'm seeing, okay, they built this thing and they were banking on the hype. Apparently there's some Doctor Strange movie or show or something coming up soon. And they're banking on the hype leading up to this event. Okay, now it's making sense. That's why this is getting so much hype. Unfortunately, this brings back bad memories of Keanu Inu, because if you go back to our Keanu Inu coverage, that's exactly what they were doing. They were banking on the hype prior to what ended up being Matrix Resurrections, arguably the worst Matrix in the series, and that's hard for you to achieve this. But they were banking on that hype, and it had unrealistic pumps leading up to this. And then they made all sorts of mistakes, and all this chaos happens. So now that I'm knowing the connected dots, okay, it's basically the same thing as Keanu Inu, and it's unrealistic pumps and unreasonable types of things. Blees mentioned that he had taken some money to do some videos for them, short videos to just kind of introduce it, talk about it, expose it to people that were following him, and talk about the graph. Same thing he always does, but there was a partnership. He disclosed how much money he made. All right, so now that I know this and I see this disclaimer, I see Disney. If you've been following the news, and you should, Disney is now having issues with the state of Florida because Ron DeSantis wants to make it to where Disney is going to have to start paying taxes. If you knew the history of Disney down there, of course, Disney, they have long since enjoyed benefits of being there and not being taxed, or at least being tax exempt with a lot of things. They have a lot of exemptions they were claiming. They started doing, quote, woke type things, and Ron DeSantis, being the person he is, said, okay, if that's the way you're going to play it, fine, we'll start taxing you MFers. Same with the boats that were playing the games with the COVID vax and all that stuff. He's been trying to get on them. So now I'm seeing, all right, we got problems here because you got this Doctor Strange thing it looks like you're leading up to, and then you got this Marvel, I don't know garbage about, but I know Marvel went, quote, woke. And now you got this Disney stuff and the fight with Ron DeSantis. So now Disney's losing popularity with the mainstream. Marvel is nowhere near what it used to be back in my day. And then the Doctor Strange, I would argue, most people of my generation would know about it, but most don't follow it because most of the modern remakes and whatever else are crap because they've gone, quote, woke. So now in my head, as I'm reading this disclaimer after the fact, I'm like, I would not have bought in even if I had looked at it, because I'm seeing that you're hooking into something that's doomed to fail in these three. But I went further because I figured maybe there's something there. Blees talked to him. He openly said he talked to the developer and was in contact with the developer. And then when this happened, the developer cut off contact. That's kind of weird because I know Blees takes strong, seriousness of making sure he stays in touch with people to know what to cover and how to cover and make sure he's calibrated with the team. He did the same thing with Voltinu. So I look at the site, and the first thing I'm seeing is the DEX score is promoted on the page. DEX scores is from dextools.io. And the problem with it is that you can pay to influence the numbers on it. It's supposed to give you an objective appearance about liquidity and how many holders and transaction activities and all this stuff. But it's kind of crowdsourcing because you could get a bunch of your buddies to go in there and influence it. So I don't put any credence to it. And I was concerned to see that they were promoting it, and I didn't know why. So now I'm looking for, what does this do other than hooking into whatever this thing is? What does this do? Their about just says, quote, innovative hyperdeflationary token aiming to revolutionize DeFi. If this sounds familiar, it's because numerous tokens have the exact same freaking verbiage on their site. Hyperdeflationary, innovative, revolutionize, keywords that don't mean anything because you're not saying how you plan to do these things. Quote, building its own strange blockchain. I didn't release the coverage I was going to do about the car salesman's project, but they were talking about doing a blockchain as well. Pulse chain is one of the big things. Everybody's talking about creating a blockchain. It sounds good, but it's a lot harder than when you describe it. Very few of the tokens have successfully been able to make a blockchain that has succeeded beyond the initial ideation phase. Strange NFTs, you heard me say it with Shirio and so many others. I believe people are tired of NFTs. And I would argue that with this kind of a project, it's banking again off whatever this Doctor Strange thing was. And I don't feel like it would have been sustainable. Strange swap, everybody's creating a swap. You have to figure out how to convince people that your swap is somehow better than somebody else's. Shiba has a swap, nobody uses it. Strange metaverse, everybody's using the word metaverse because it sounds good and it's current and in the now, but it doesn't mean anything. You're not showing anything. MetaCloud at least showed images of what their metaverse entry might look like. So at least there's something there to look at. With Strange Inu, they didn't show anything that would prove we put some design thought into this thing. Quote, aims to be one of the largest community-driven projects in the multiverse. Community-driven projects. You've heard this time and again. Every project, especially the ones that have Inu on the back of it for some reason, are all talking about being, quote, community-driven projects. Why? Because they figure that the community is what needs to come first, when the truth is the utility is what needs to come first. Your community should follow based on the community, as we've learned from Everrise. They have a section that's called, quote, reviews, which looks like it's a randomly rotating deal that shows different YouTube videos from all these different influencers. Then you go down and they have a white paper linked. I looked at the white paper. It is a PDF. It's a white paper. And I would put it maybe about a B minus. It's a decent white paper. It doesn't tell me everything I'd like to know, but they did try to follow the rubric. A lot of time and energy was put into the white paper that I see. So I don't see this was slapped together like some other ones, like that BabyApeNodes garbage. This one, they took some time to build this thing out. They linked what they called an audit report. The problem is it's their own document. So either they performed their own audit on themselves, or it's somebody else's audit and they took away the name of who did the audit. I suspect it's their own internal audit. If they did an audit on themselves and they published it as a credible audit already, because there should be no reason anybody would accept that. Why, and I'm trying not to swear, by the way, why the F would you put a document that apparently is your own dang audit on your site, proudly broadcasting this? But it gets better. In this document that they call their quote audit, they call out some of the issues in this thing. On this list, quote, the maximum transaction amount does not apply to the owner during transactions where the owner is the sender or recipient. So what they did is they tried to create a limit on the maximum transaction amount, but they allowed the owner to completely override it. Quote, the owner has the ability to use the lock function in order to temporarily set ownership to address 0. Ownership is restored after the duration of time determined by the owner has passed and they use the unlock function. Ownership can additionally be restored even if ownership was previously renounced by using the unlock function a second time. Let me explain what that bullet says. This says that right now it's not renounced, and I confirmed this through Market Move. It's not renounced, but we can set it temporarily to basically remove ownership temporarily through a function that we call. This is trying to copy what EverOwn does, where they lose control of it for a period of time and they can unlock it. The problem is they're doing this internally with a function they control, so technically they're not losing control. But the worst part is that last sentence that says, quote, ownership can be restored even if ownership was previously renounced. This like you can't, nobody can read that and consider that acceptable at all. I can't imagine anybody that would look at that and say, this is an acceptable project. This was written on April 8th. I don't understand why somebody would think this is okay. Quote, there is no burn that occurs as a result of the burn fee. This fee simply reduces the amount of tokens that the recipient will receive from the sender in a transaction. However, the 3% is never sent anywhere and is not subtracted from the sender's balance. So let me get this right. You have a burn fee that you declared in your tokenomics. The burn fee allegedly is a 3%, quote, on all transactions for any, quote, non-excluded, unquote, addresses that participate in a transfer. The owner has the ability to modify these fees to any percentage at any time. However, ownership is now the 0 address, so this change will not occur, which directly contradicts your other bullet that says, quote, ownership can be restored even if ownership was renounced by using the unlock function. And what you're saying is this 3% burn fee, quote, there's no burn that occurs as a result of the burn fee. The fee simply reduces the amount of tokens a recipient will receive from the sender in a transaction. However, the 3% is never sent anywhere and is not subtracted from the sender's balance. So listen to what I'm trying to break this down because what it's saying is basically you're writing in white letters in this case that you're ripping people off because sender, right, has 1,000 tokens. Sender is wants to send 1,000 tokens to receiver. It says it's going to charge you a burn fee. However, I send 1,000 and it's supposed to be 3% of my 1,000, so 30, right? This 30 doesn't actually get sent anywhere. It just basically the receiver gets 30 less tokens. That's not a burn. That's a ripoff is what that is. Like, I can't imagine why anybody could have read that and thought this is acceptable. And this is how I figured these guys are like young and they didn't know what they were doing. And they banked on FOMO most likely. And that nobody would pay attention to the fundamentals in the document, because if they had read that, or even seeing that the freaking audit report is self-audited, there's no way anybody would have said it's okay unless they figured they could just get off the FOMO and profit off of it and pump and dump it. They called out all these different audit results that don't mean anything because it's their own freaking audit. I was shocked. I was absolutely shocked in what I read in this quote audit that the people bought in, because later on that same site, they have a collage of all the different influencers that they paid to do coverage on the project, their face, in some cases their real name, like Tammy, who's Tammy Ski on Twitter, and Adam Shelton, he uses his real name, Adam Captain or whatever. But Jazz Royce, I don't think that's his real name, but in some cases it's their real name. In some cases it's their online name. And guess who's here? Crypto Realist. Again, he gets rugged again. But they put all these people's faces and names on this site prior to this rug pull. I can only describe it as a rug pull now because they deleted social media. When I looked in the blockchain, it looked almost to me like the devs tried to take some of the money and they tried to do something with it and then got scammed off of it, and then it got stolen from them. It looks like that somebody screwed up. It didn't look like they were maliciously taking money. It looked like that they mishandled the funds. When I look at the blockchain activities, I went through DBank, which is a different tool, and the transactions don't scream malicious or scam. They scream like somebody didn't know what the heck they were doing with all this money, and they tried to move it, do something, and got scammed, and it got taken from them. That's what it looks like to me. I'm not making a claim. I'm making an observation. But what bothers me is that when this happened, every last person on here's reputation is tanked because of this, because of their adamant push to simply, we don't have a utility first. We're just going to go after as many influencers as we can and raise unreasonable levels of hype leading up to this Doctor Strange. And so now I saw like Tammy, she had responded off this social media account, and she was pissed. I could clearly tell. I haven't checked all the rest of these. I know Bleaves is upset, but I certainly saw Tammy wasn't having it. And I can only imagine what Crypto Realist is feeling, because now he's taking L's like left and right. And I got to tell everybody here, this project, the one unique thing about why I'm so surprised so many people jumped on this thing, I'm not surprised, but I am surprised. This strange Inu is on the Binance Smart Chain. You've heard me on my smoke reports. I said that if a token is only on the Binance Smart Chain, it's never going to get higher than a C, because the Binance Smart Chain is way riskier than the Ethereum chain. Scams are easy to do, but you don't know why. I'm going to break down why. When you mint a token, when you create the token the first time, you have to pay the gas to set all this stuff up. You have to pay the gas to establish the smart contract, establish the token. You have to pay gas to establish the smart contract. You have to pay gas to go off to production. You have to pay gas to load the liquidity. You're paying all these gas fees, and it can add up. You can pay hundreds of dollars on this garbage just to get your token running on the Ethereum chain. People that have money coming in, like they have $5,000 or $10,000 ready to go, don't care as much, but that gas started to be a turnoff. So what happens? The Binance Smart Chain's gas is way lower. You might only pay somewhere between 30 cents and $8, depending on the nature of what you're doing, to do the same thing, which is create a token that you can basically do the same behaviors. The problem is, because the gas is so much lower, it increases the probability of scams that are out there. The Binance Smart Chain, in my opinion, arguably has more scams by a factor of at least 5 than Ethereum ever could or would. And I think the gas is the primary disincentive to why we're seeing this. Polygon certainly has its share of scams. Polygon doesn't have as many people on it as the Binance Smart Chain. The Binance Smart Chain has arguably the second group of people in terms of a number of group volume, right? Versus the Ethereum. It's like the second in there. Avalanche is certainly up there. Other ones are getting up there. Binance is time honored. It's been around, and the gas has never gone significantly high, other than certain one-off things where it spiked. But when I looked at this many people, a lot of these people never talked about Binance Smart Chain tokens from what I can tell. Like if I look at Crypto Journey, right? Rodney, or AKA Fudney, I guess they call him. Even his image straight tells you he's not talked about Binance tokens. I don't even recall videos other than Strange and a couple other ones where he's talked about Binance tokens. So now I'm like, What is it that about this project that got so many of these people duped by this? And the only thing I can think of is possibly charming people in the devs. I never talked to them. I avoided it because there was too much hype on social media and I didn't trust it. Either they're like charming people, nice to talk to, willing to chat. You know, they had a pretty good social media presence. The only thing they didn't have was Telescam, but they had everything else, from what I can tell. And Reddit, or no, there's a Reddit, yeah. But LinkedIn. LinkedIn's the only thing they didn't have. They had Telescam, they had all the other stuff. And I'm trying to understand how all of these people got duped by this. Now, fortunately, I didn't see a lot of traffic of people that bought into it, so that's good. But I was still concerned at how so many people could fall for this group or person or whatever. Blee said that he had talked on a regular basis to the dev, was a regular contact, and then contact cut off. I looked at the roadmap. The roadmap is nothing more than marketing up front, social media launch, white paper out there, grow holders off of what? Telescam, building teams around these different social medias, and then going after influencers, and then start doing utilities. For me, this is my opinion, and I'm not attacking the people that got cheated. I feel bad for them, but at the same time, I'm trying to understand what it was about this project that caught people's eye and told them that it was even worth the coverage, because as I look at it, there's nothing here other than the pump. So then because of what happened, however it happened, whyever it happened, I don't know if the devs stole it. I don't know if the devs had an internal dev that took the money, or it was like a green chart situation where those idiots gave the keys to the private keys to that duck-faced girl and she stole it. I don't know what happened here. I wasn't there. I wasn't in that room. I'm saying that I don't see anything fundamentally worth covering on this guy at all, other than the pump. If that's all we're doing, based on Doctor Strange, it's Keanu Inu all over again. And then because of what happened later, essentially it becomes a pump and dump. Because these guys were allowed and enabled and empowered to create this collage of all the different influencers that covered it, this group, this person, has now tainted the reputation of each and every person on here. And the vast majority of them, I can tell, were not shilling the thing. They were doing coverage. They were saying, look at the charts, growing, it's doing some good stuff. The vast majority of them were not shilling it. So now I'm wondering, was this strategic? Was this actually whoever's behind this garbage, was this strategic where they were trying to send a message to these influencers, where they purposely wanted to embarrass the influencers? Was this something that was planned? Because if I look at Jazz Royce as an example, Jazz Royce tends to shill at times. I wouldn't call him a shiller, but he does tend to shill at times. And as a result, certain people have been pissed at him. Rodney, Crypto Journey, people certainly have been pissed at him because of the way he does coverage. That's why they call him, quote, Fudney. And then Crypto Realist, the way that happened with Sandstorm and all this other stuff. Like there's all this stuff I'm seeing with everybody represented here where it makes me tinfoil, as it is, makes me wonder if this was strategic, that somebody did this in order to try to embarrass these people. Why else would you have the collage? I've never seen anything like this garbage. Like why? I can't even imagine why you would do this. If you have a project, any project, whether crypto or not, why would if I say act like a business, if you're going to act like a business, let's take Coca-Cola. Great example. Coca-Cola does show like, okay, Padre Stadium or Crypto.com Arena or Madison Square Garden or whatever as people that work with them as a business. However, that's not the dominant messaging of their site. The dominant messaging of their site is around their product. Their product is 99% of their page because that's what you're supposed to do. What is it that we do? Then as an, oh, by the way, byline, yes, the Padres buy our beverages. Madison Square Garden buys our beverages. Nobody cares about that. It's just, by the way, we do that. It's not the dominant messaging. You certainly wouldn't create this massive collage of a thing. Could you imagine if Elon Musk said, okay, Tesla, what we need to do is we need to find 20 Tesla drivers out there and we need to dominate our website with photos of hot women on Instagram posing near a Tesla in a bikini. Now, are there women that pose in bikinis near Teslas? Absolutely. But that does not dominate the Tesla site. What's dominating the Tesla site are Teslas because it's their product. gobsmacked at seeing this and not understanding how, why, what the heck was going on any of them. Like Tammy, I don't know her personally. I've watched her coverage. I think she has a very good setup as far as like her video, audio. I think she has a great setup. And I think she tries her best to be fair. I don't regard her as a shiller in any regard. But I also say that she's very intelligent in the way she presents. She presents very well spoken. I've seen some of her AMAs. I see that she's a very intelligent person. I can't imagine how charming these dudes or ladies, whatever, had to be to convince Tammy that it was worth putting her reputation on the line for this garbage. That's like the pinnacle of charm there. That's why I'm saying I'm not sold that it was a malicious rug pull. I'm going to tinfoil it and I'm going to say somebody inside there, whatever, screwed up. They tried to move money doing whatever it was and they got shanked. Somebody took the cash. They got embarrassed because they're like, oh crap, that happened. Now what do we do? And they tried to deflect on social media because initially they were tweeting saying we weren't rug pulled, it's not a scam, we're doing all this other stuff. Even on Instagram, they updated, they said, quote, we didn't rug, we got sniped by bots, don't blame YouTubers. That's all they said. And then they posted the messaging from Dex Tools and they said, quote, what happened is when we set up the liquidity pool, there was one wallet waiting in the new contract and sold the moment it was deployed. We believe it was a sniping bot. So I want to break this down because the transactions would correlate to that based on what I saw. And how this would work, in order for that to happen, you'd have to have put the new contract the same thing happened with Lily Finance. The new contract address gets published. A bunch of people buy in and they're waiting for the thing to go live. Meanwhile, the Lily team had not told everybody who was waiting what the contract address is. It was sent through Telescam. And those people, including Del Rugpool, bought in at rock bottom price so that when the moment that they actually did turn it on and they loaded the liquidity, these people dumped off of it, took all the money and ran, and then Lily tanked. What the social media for Strange is describing is that no, what happened is we tried to do this and unfortunately somebody caught the address early. Bleaves basically in his video was breaking down the only way that this could have worked is somebody inside had to have that contract address because the devs would not have distributed it. I'm saying that it is possible, and I'm not defending, I'm saying it's possible that someone found it because that happened with Lily Finance and it was distributed to Telescam and it was never solved exactly who distributed the address. But if it's the same thing, then that means it's confirming what I'm saying. I think the devs screwed up. I think that they tried to move money somehow and they dropped the ball. When I looked at the contract is a carbon copy of another token that was considered a scam. When I looked at the changes that Strange Emu made, I can clearly tell that these are rookies. These are people who didn't know what they were doing. And inside the white paper, you see all this verbiage that blatantly tells you that people are going to get ripped off. When I connect the dots on this thing, my guess is they tried to move money and they screwed up. That's one, or two, somebody inside that thing took it, basically said, I'm going to set up this thing and I'm going to just drain it and I'm going to run. And whoever was left over was the mark. Like whoever was running the social media was the mark and didn't realize. So if there was a disconnect between the social media runner and the people, the devs inside, then yes, it's a true rug pull by definition. And it would be the same thing as Suzuki at that point. I can't say 100% because it's all gone. A lot of the evidence is gone. I did capture some of the stuff off their Insta scam because it's still up. And I did see some of the stuff that was going on with this business. But at the end of the day, though, Strange Emu, I'm more appalled at the fact that it seemed like very few of the influencers even looked at the white paper. It seems like none of them even looked at the white paper, because if you looked at the white paper, there's no way you would trust it. There's no way. It was crazy. Like, I'm stunned. And okay. Anyhow, Strange Emu. You know what? I love doing this analysis because it helps validate for me why I do what I do, which is I care about the freaking fundamentals of a thing, and I will go and I'll look at this stuff. And all I can say for any of the influencers that hear this, and I doubt any of them will, but if any of them hear this, there's no way you could have read this white paper. It's not possible. Or if you did, you didn't understand what it was saying, but there's no way you could have read the white paper. There's no way you could have. Or maybe you did and didn't question the devs behind it, but why would you? Why not? Like, there's so many issues in the white paper apropos that it's all predominantly red. Stranging you, the influencer rug pull, not the biggest one, not the last one. I will say Binance Smart Chain. I'm not, it is what it is. Binance Smart Chain is the riskiest business you can think of. And I say that because I'm in it almost all the time. That's predominantly where I trade. So I know what's out there, but I also know what to look for. And I'm happy to help anybody at any time. Like I don't care if you're an influencer at this point, man, because it's supposed to be a community. I know, again, I'm not part of the whatever, forum or whatever group that you got. As I said on my last episode, I know I'm not part of it because you don't consider me an influencer. That's fine. My whole reason I exist online is to try to help people avoid these kinds of things. I bring a lot of skills to the table that some of you likely may lack. I want to help, and I'm happy to help. I'm simply saying to you, there's no way you could have read this white paper if you were willing to put your reputation on the line for this. There's no way you read the white paper. If you read the white paper, either you didn't understand what it said or you didn't care. Because I'm leaning towards you didn't read it, because I know some of you guys. I've seen some of your coverage. I know that some of you care about the people that follow you, and you don't want people that follow you getting ripped off. So I know in my head, logic dictates you could not have read the white paper. It's not possible, because you are the kind that are trying to do coverage for projects that really are worth it. If you cared about your followers like I suspect you would, the white paper would have had to have been square one. It had to have been number one. If you didn't read it, I'm sorry, that would be the one thing that would bother me. It's not that you took money from them, because you wouldn't know. Looking at it on the surface, it looks like they might have had something off the Doctor Strange thing. So I don't go off that. And a lot of the money that was shared wasn't significant amounts of money. It wasn't like the $15,000 to Jake Gagan or something. I'm just saying there's no way you could have read this white paper. And if you did, you couldn't have understood what it was saying, because they're straight telling you we're going to rip the people off in the white paper. It's blatantly obvious, and I'm going to share those images so people understand what it was that I'm seeing, and I'm open. I would like to help anybody. I would argue, pretty darn good at being able to find these things in advance. That's why I look for them in advance, and I try not to cover them until I see them and I'm confident in them. So for anybody who follows me on a regular basis, it validates why I do the coverage I do the way I do, because I'm looking for these weird one-off things. Like this one's worse than car salesman. That's how bad it is. That's why I'm so adamant and energized about it. This is worse than car salesman. Even car salesman wasn't this blatant about it. At least he tries to hide that he's trying to rip people off. So, strange emu, rug pull, not the largest, not the last. There will be more. Crypto Realist, man, I don't know what to tell you, dude. I don't know.